it's been kind of a slowish week, but I mean, it's not been that bad of a week, kind of. Hi guys, it's Misty and welcome back to my channel. This video is my weekly what sold on eBay for the week of March 2nd through the 8th, 2020. It's been a little sporadic. It's been a steady week, but it's still been a little bit slow than what my sales normally are. And I'm just wondering, is that the case for you? I know a lot of people in this community are talking about the coronavirus and how it's probably affecting sales a little bit. I'm not quite sure that I'm on that mindset, but I'm just curious as to see what your sales are doing. So if you sell on any platforms, let me know in the comments if your sales are up, if they're down, or if they're about the same, and what your opinion is on how the coronavirus will affect our sales this season. All right, so let's go ahead and I will show you what sold for me this week on eBay. In the Sellers Hub, like we do every week, you can see here what my total sales were. Now this is my total gross sales. So this number right here does not deduct my taxes and my fees. So one thing that you can do is you see these numbers here every day. These are your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on and so forth. So this is your week. You can click on each of these boxes and it will give you what your net sales were for each day. You can see here my total sales, my selling costs, and then your net sales. So this is an easy way for you to go ahead and check what your net sales are each week, and then you can go through here and check on each item and what your fees were. So this is something that is a good way for you to just go ahead and quickly see what your net sales were each day. And you get this through the Sellers Hub. And how you do that is you just click on these little in your Sellers Hub, these little calendar dates, and you can just click on the day or the week or the month or however you want to figure up your sales. And I started this week on the 2nd and I ended it on March 8th, and then it will give you these numbers. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the items that I sold. This is a modern canine pet grooming wipes. I had received this in one of my subscription boxes. I believe it was Grove Collaborative. And I had 2 of them and I just never used them. And so this is one that was never used. And I went ahead and just said, I'm just going to throw it up on eBay. And it did sell for $8. I did do free shipping on this. This is when I was still doing free shipping for lighter weight items. I'm no longer doing that. I am charging shipping on my items. And this is just one that didn't get revised in time, so it did sell for $8 with free shipping. The next item, or actually these 2 items sold to the same buyer. I had started a collection of these, but I've moved on to a different collection, so this is something that I do often. I'll just put them on eBay and start a new collection. And these 2 vintage Trivets, this one sold for $13.59. This one also sold for $13.59. They were free shipping. They did ship first class even together. These were purchased by the same buyer. They're just these little vintage metal Trivets. They're just little kitschy little sayings on them. You can typically, sell them anywhere between $10 and $18 depending on what they say. So these are, you can see they were made in Japan, and just little aluminum metal Trivets. They're more decor pieces than anything. This item is something that I got in a box auction box lot. Is this Elvis Presley Volume 1 poster book with 21 posters inside. You can see here each page was a different Elvis poster. This was Volume 1, so I thought this might be okay. Well, and I had it for a little while. I did run a 20% off sale. I originally had it at $18.29 and I sold it for $14.63, and it did ship first class. Actually, this one, yeah, first class, and it shipped for free for the customer. The next item is something that I purchased these last year at a yard sale. I bought, I think, a whole case of them, and I only have a few left. And they are these Dr. Dennis Gross Lotion Alpha Beta for the body. They're basically self-tanning lotions. They were brand new, sealed, and this one sold for $16 and did do free shipping. They did ship first class. I believe I want to say I paid $25 for the entire case, and I'm selling, and there were maybe 25 or 30 of them in the case, and I'm selling them anywhere between $12 and $18 a piece. The next item is these vintage Chromex 4-inch spun aluminum salt and pepper shakers. They have the black lids. They sold for $14.80 on a 20% off sale. Buyer did pay shipping. These were cute. These are highly collectible. These ones that I had did have issues. The lid on the salt shaker was glued back together, so it was in functional use, but it still had issues. So I did note that in the listing, and I have said before that I do keep my listings what I call short and sweet. I just give the information that's needed. I don't put a lot of other fluff or anything else down here. I know a lot of people do. They'll put free shipping, or they'll put no exchanges, no returns, their shop policies. I just don't do that. I just put what information I think that the customer wants and needs, and what I'm looking for when I'm shopping for something. That if there's any issues with them, like this one, the salt lid has been repaired. Both lids screw on nice and are functional. They were very clean. They're from a smoke-free home. I do next day shipping. If they have any further questions, they will send you an email and ask you, but I just don't like to bog down my descriptions with a lot of other words, because honestly, a lot of times the customers, this is like a second thing that they look at. I do make sure that I put any kind of condition issues in the description, but they're mainly looking at your title and your pictures. And can't tell you how many times I have sold something and the customer gets it back and says, hey, this was damaged, and I'm like, yeah, I know, it was in the description, and they said, oh, I didn't read the description, my bad. So make sure that you do know everything. eBay will, if you have all this in your description, eBay will side with you if a buyer files a claim that something was not as described and you did describe it in the listing. Just make sure that you keep any correspondence with them. Make sure that they contact you through eBay and not through, your email address, because you can use all of this correspondence as proof that something, was as described, because it was in the description and they just didn't read it. All right, the next item is this vintage green handle pearl marble Bakelite butter knives. There was a set of 4. These beautiful Bakelite knives, very mid-century. Sold on a 20% off sale for $11.60, and the buyer paid $4.60 shipping. The next item is this cute little vintage antique napkin reed holder with these little cats on here. It was just an unusual piece. I unfortunately only had one of them. Dad picked this up at a flea market. He thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting too. It was 2.5 inches tall, or a little over 2 inches tall. It did sell for $15.19, and the buyer paid $3.50 shipping. The next item is a watch box. Now, I always buy vintage watch boxes when they're in good condition. These nice clam shell boxes. A lot of times they'll have this velvety interior and the really cool graphics on the outside, the inside. The outside of this, it was pretty, but it wasn't the prettiest one I've ever seen. You might notice these look like little stains on the top. They were little flecks of glitter. It's not really showing up very well in the picture, but these do pretty well for me. And you can find them, for a cheap price. They, depending on what they are, you can sell them for around $20 a piece. This one was an Olympic watch, just the clamshell case. I always do list box only, because some people will think that they're buying the watch, because right here it says the Olympic watch, but you need to, make sure that you do note either in the title or in the description that it was box only. I do give the measurements, and again, box only, does not come with watch. Lots of clean and crisp pictures of any damage on it at all. This one did sell for $15.99 and the buyer paid shipping. The next item are these Keds Women's Classic Champion Canvas shoes. I picked these up at Goodwill. All the shoes at my Goodwill are $4.50. You know, this is something that I would not buy again. I thought that just because of the color, and they had these really cute laces, and I had these on all the other platforms when I was selling on Poshmark and Mercari, and they still didn't sell. I've had these for about a year. Took a best offer. They sold for $15.20. The buyer did pay shipping on these. They did ship in a padded flat rate. Oh my gosh, I am finally listing the death pile of vintage leather belts that I have, and they have been selling. This one was a hand-tooled Western scene, and I did put rockabilly in the title. That's a good word to use for, you know, kind of boho, kind of things that the younger crowd might want. This rockabilly thing is just like a nice keyword to use. I picked these up for 99 cents a piece at Goodwill, and I have several of them. I did finally get them listed. This one sold on a 20% off sale for $19.60, and the buyer paid shipping. And you know, your pictures, it's kind of hard to take a picture of the belt, so if you kind of roll it up a little bit and make sure that you show some of the graphic, and you know, just kind of get every little inch of the belt that you can in a photo, just so they can see. This one did not have a size, I don't believe. No, it didn't have a size, but so I just did the total length of the belt. It was 38 inches. Please measure accordingly. Belt is not marked with a size. So you might want to make sure that you do provide measurements so they can compare with a belt that they have for size. All right, the next item are these Dansko Women Brown Leather Tooled Boho Slip-On Sandals. I've had these for a while. Dansko, the sandals don't do as well for me as the work shoes, the nursing shoes. So I've had these for a long time. I took a best offer, $13.50. The buyer did pay shipping, and I will not be buying these again. The next item is a vintage 80s Marguerite women's hand-knitted sweater. This was a vintage 80s sweater with these really kawaii pastel colors on them. I do tend to pick up these types of sweaters. I'm only buying vintage clothing, but this is one thing that I probably will still buy, even though this one didn't sell for what I had originally hoped that it sold for. I did sell it on a 20% off sale for $15.99, and the buyer paid shipping. These little keychains were something that I had at the shop for a while. Never sold them, never put them for sale in the shop, and I decided to try them on eBay. They were these really cute little retro Western Electric pink princess telephone keychains. They were new old stock. You can see here they said Western Electric. They were very thin little, not really a two-dimensional, they were more of just like a flat keychain. They're very cute, but they were dated 1959 on the inscription, and the lots of them sold for $24.50, and the buyer paid shipping. The next item is something that I had a lot of watchers, I had a lot of lookers, I had a lot of questions, I had a lot of offers on this vintage rubber set pure badger hair shaving brush in this butterscotch with this Bakelite handle. It did come with the original case. These, if you find these, especially the ones that have the Bakelite handles, you can get good money on them, and sometimes you can find them at estate sales, at yard sales. Shaving things, vintage shaving items have a very high collectible market for them. So you just kind of have to do your research a little bit, kind of look them up. If you get them for, really cheap, I would still go ahead and grab them. The ones that aren't Bakelite, you can throw together in a lot and still make a really good profit on them. This one did sell for $26.50. The buyer paid shipping. You can see here, this one did have the maker's mark on it. Sometimes they don't, and you just kind of have to, just say that it's unmarked, and if you can tell that it's Bakelite. Sometimes it's not, but this one, it was like this butterscotch Bakelite. It was in really nice condition in the case. So these do sell very well if you can get them at a great price. The next item, these are something that I had in my own home. It's again another collection that I had for a little while and now I've decided to sell. They are these Cupid Awake and Rest, and these, they say in the little, I don't know if I got a good enough picture, but in the picture here it says Cupid Awake. These were a 10 frame and they were artist marked by B. Parkinson. I did sell the set of them on a 20% off sale for $19.60 and the buyer paid shipping. The next item is this cute little vintage Pottery stoneware crock bowl. It was just a little nugget of a bowl, 5.5 inches with this really pretty blue and pink stripe. You can see here, it's just a sweet little bowl. Now, these were, I think, in a set of nesting bowls, these crock bowls. I actually tried to sell this, I think, for $15 or $12 on my live vintage sale on my YouTube channel, and this one did not sell, so I did put it on eBay, and it sold for $24.50. The buyer paid shipping. With these crock bowls, condition does mean a lot. This one was in excellent condition. It had no chipping. A lot of times the rim will be chipped around here or underneath. They'll have cracks on it. This one didn't. A little bit of fading around the rim itself is okay because these bowls were used as knife sharpeners as well. So you might have some marring or some marks all around the bowl, but that usually doesn't affect the value. The thing that will affect the value if there's big gouges or chips out of it, and this one was in really good condition. The next thing is this Chromex spun aluminum cake saver with this original glass tray. Now, I do want to say I have been playing around with the new white background that eBay has on the mobile, on your mobile device, that you can make a pure white background. As you can see here, this was me lightening the picture as well, and it still wasn't very bright. The background still looks gray. And then I used this, and you can see it does look like the cake server, let me get a big picture, is dented up here. It's not. That's just where this, on a lot of vintage items, this background, white background eliminator doesn't work on everything, and so I wish I wouldn't have used it on that, because it doesn't look like, it does look like it's dented right here. It was not. This is in great condition. So just be careful with that. It doesn't, you kind of want to, if you do it, you kind of want to look on your laptop just at a big picture just to make sure, because after looking at this, I'm thinking that just doesn't look very good. So you just have to play around with it, but be careful with it as well. And this sold for $25.60, and the buyer did pay shipping. But this had the original glass tray. A lot of times you'll find just the dome itself at Goodwill, and there's still a value in there, but when they're complete like this is when you can get a little bit more money out of them, obviously. The next item is the Chenango China green scroll edge sauce bowls and bread plates. These are restaurant ware. I sold the lot of 4 of them on a 20% off sale for $18, and the buyer did pay shipping. I've had these for a while, and so I was ready to move them out and get them to their new home. Very pretty scroll design on them though. Restaurant ware does do pretty well for me. The next item is this Marks powered New York Central Railroad switcher engine. It was number 588, sold for $38.50, and the buyer paid shipping. These do really well. Train items always sell very, very fast for me. I do put in the description that it is untested because I cannot test these. I don't have a choo-choo train set to test these. I also put it in the the little blurb of a description that you can add to, and I do price these to make a little bit of wiggle room as well, because you typically will get an offer for these because of the collector's market. It's a pretty big collector's market out there for these vintage trains. The next item I sold is this vintage mid-century Happy Clown gravel pebble art wall hanging. I had this in the shop forever. I think I had $10 on it in the shop because these types of items did not sell for me locally at all. So I put it on eBay, and it sold on a 20% off sale for $32, and the buyer paid shipping. These mid-century items, especially the gravel art or the pebble art, and they kind of look like fish rocks, like fish aquarium rocks. There is a collector's market for these. You just have to make sure that the gravel isn't missing in spots, and if it, like, see up here around the eye, you know, I always say that the pictures are part of the description, and the customer needs to zoom in and see if there is any condition issues that I may have missed. The next item is this vintage 7-Up bottle desk lamp. This was a cool piece. I picked this up at an estate sale. Look at that. It's a little desk lamp that has this telescoping arm that raised up to make it a desk lamp. I think it's really cool, and it sold on a 20% off sale. I had it for a while, and it did finally sell for $36.40, and the buyer paid shipping. It's from the 70s. It was just a unique, cool piece. And you can see here, it's good that you can, if an item does work, that you dim the lights a little bit and show it turned on. Really, with any kind of electronics, calculators, clocks, anything that, you know, does plug in, just so the buyer can see that it does work, that it's tested it works great, and they can see that for themselves in the picture. And the last thing that sold for me this past week was this vintage, or well, actually it wasn't vintage, it was an antique banknote cigar box. Sold for, actually I did take a best offer for this, I think for $65. I did price it high at the beginning because the comps were kind of all over the place, so I just kind of threw a number out there. This one was in very nice condition, although it did have, you can see, let me find the photo of it. You can see right here there was some green paint drippings on it, and there were a few places in the corners where there was wear. There's another picture of the green paint that was on it. Beautiful oak box. This was a humidor, a cigar humidor, and it had this beautiful brass plate on it. And honestly, if you can find just the brass plate alone on some items, just, you know, they can be a value too. Or if an item, if you just find a lid and, you know, the rest of it's missing, I have sold these brass plates alone too. They can do well. But originally I had this for $92, took a best offer of $64, and the buyer did pay shipping. So, you know, these humidors, there is a collector's market for them, and honestly, it's just a cool box. It's just a cool looking box, and it was worth every bit of the money that they paid for it. So those are the items that I have sold this week. All right, now as you can see, I did tell you how that you can tell your net sales versus your gross sales. If you go into that seller's hub, just explore it a little bit. And see what options that you can use to look up different items that you might want to explore a little bit more for your record keeping. I do know that one thing that I do myself is I pay my eBay fees weekly. So every Monday I go in and I pay my eBay fees. There's a way that you can do that, and it says make a one-time payment. It's itty bitty little small text, but you can click on that and you can pay your fees daily. You can pay them weekly, whatever works best for you. I myself prefer to pay them weekly because I don't want a huge bill at the end of the month. I know that it comes out of the, you know, you're paying for it all in general, but it makes me feel a little bit better if I just pay that smaller amount each week. So that's just a wee little tip if you don't know about it. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about what my sales were, or how much I made. I just talked about what my sales were. Now you want to know what I made for the week. Well, my gross sales for the week on eBay was $569.11. My sales were down 7.7% than what they were last week, and I sold 23 items. Now, with that gross, I take that gross number and I divide it by how many things that I sold, and that gives me my average selling price. And my average selling price on my items this week was $24, which I like to keep my average selling price around $25, so I'm okay with that number. So those were my eBay sales. And I have a live vintage sale every Wednesday at 1:00 on my YouTube channel right here. So you can buy things from my eBay store. You can buy things directly from me on Wednesdays. So if you're not checking that out, I would love for you to do that. It's actually items that I show you before they even get listed on eBay. And you can get them for a better price when you buy directly from me than buying in my eBay store. This was a slower week for me, but I'm just curious. I'm just curious about how this coronavirus is. You know, whenever our sales are slow, we always try to find something to blame it on, right? We just need a list. You need a list, play around with your listings, edit your listings, change them up a little bit, make your pictures brighter. But be wary of that new option in eBay on your mobile devices to be able to make a clear white background. It works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't, and you want to make sure that your pictures aren't looking distorted. So make sure that your pictures still look good and they do look real, because I've noticed that sometimes it makes the pictures look a little, I don't know. I like it for some things, but not for everything. So just play around with that a little bit too. And that's what I sold this week. So I hope that your sales have been decent, that you've been just keep listing, and I hope that you still stick with it. And if it's a slow week, just know that sometimes you'll get some slow weeks, but then sometimes you'll get those busy good weeks, and that's what makes you excited about this whole reselling game. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye, and I will see you guys in the next video.